justice.
Brenda Shaffer, professor, United States Naval Postgraduate School, United States.
Thank you for hosting us. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for sharing your time with us. I have two questions, if possible. Azerbaijan, for 30 years of its strategic projects, it sees demand, it sees needs ahead of time strategically, often more than international oil companies, foreign governments. If I take, for example, the Southern Gas Corridor, Azerbaijan identified that Europe is going to have increased natural gas demand, even when European institutions thought their needs would be modest, when companies, I remember during the FID of the project, this was termed the last mega gas project, and everything was going to be on LNG and renewables, and Azerbaijan understood, built scalable, built double capacity, and already within 2 years of operation, that demand is already in place from Europe. Another infrastructure project that I had the honor to visit this week was in Zengilan. So seeing, if someone looks today, you see who needs an airport here? Why here in this corner are these beautiful homes being built in this modern city? Of course, for justice, as you mentioned, refugees going back. We always hear about conflicts, about the suffering of refugees or the injustice, but we never see I don't recall a situation where the refugees actually got to go home, and it was very exciting to see this. But I believe there must be some vision here that's similar to the Southern Gas Corridor, similar to the BTC, that sees ahead. Where do you see the greater region around Zengilan in 10 years? Who will be using that airport? Will it be the cities of northern Iran when they're more open? Will it be eastern Turkey? How do you see that region developing? And then a second question, we're seeing tremendous significant developments in Muslim majority countries. We can say everything from Abraham Accords, which shifted all the cooperation lines, transportation lines in the Middle East. The very clear, if Iran was a symbol of standing up for Muslims, it's very clear after 30 years of occupation, and as you said, not one peeps about the problem of occupation, and in fact, even having economic projects like the Hudafarin hydropower plant, Gizgalasib hydropower plant, in the occupied territories, even restoring or building parts of mosques in Shusha. Obviously, Iran doesn't speak for Islamic solidarity anymore. We see the shift of Turkey being involved in the building of militaries in many Muslim-majority countries. Saudi Arabia's main cooperation in oil is with Russia, not with other OPEC producers. And Iran, basically calling itself the name of Shia, but how could a truly religious government shoot women in the head, treat women the way they're treated? Are we seeing a new model, especially among Shia Muslims, developing where no longer looking to Qom, maybe looking to Najaf, looking to other places, or maybe a completely different model, which is actually like, for instance, the model of Azerbaijan, where it's a very secular government, secular state institutions, but a religious believing people, which is actually more connected to traditional Islam, where religious leaders were not governors, but were separate from the state institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You touched upon a very important issues. I just, answering these questions, want to say that our strong belief and what we are doing here with respect to development of the country, and also giving messages to the society that religion must be separated from the state. We are all Muslims in Azerbaijan. There are also Christians, Jews, and representatives of other religions. But religion should not interfere into political life. We do not understand when somebody talks about political Islam. This is not something which is common in Azerbaijan, and one of our advantages as independent country in this geography, I think, is, and one of our achievements is that we managed to strengthen the secular character of our society at the same time with full respect to religious feelings of all our citizens. And what we are doing now, for instance, Karabakh, apart from airports, which you mentioned, is restoration of mosques, including the mosque in Shusha, which was illegally, quote, restored but damaged by one Iranian company. And that was a big scandal because even we invited then Iranian ambassador to our foreign minister, saying that you have no right to do it. You have no right to touch it. You have no right, first of all, to visit Shusha, which is part of Azerbaijan, without our agreement. And that was, again, the sign of solidarity with Armenians, who destroyed 65 mosques in Karabakh and Zengezur out of 67. And one in Agdam, which you will see, they used it as a stable for cows and pigs, and also minarets they used as observation point to see Azerbaijani troops. And the mosque in Shusha was so-called renovated to demonstrate the so-called tolerance of Armenians who look, they renovate, and they called it the Persian mosque. First, the mosque doesn't have nationality. You cannot call Persian or, I don't know, any other. This is part of our history, and none of us forgot that. Therefore, as I said, separation and total, separation of religion from political life. This is our model, and this model proves to be successful. So we don't have in Azerbaijan all what you've described in your question. We have full unity among Muslims in Azerbaijan, regardless which part of Muslim religions they belong to, Shia or Sunni. We have unique experience of having a unity prayer in our mosque, where Shia and Sunni Muslim pray together. And how can we separate if all of them are Azerbaijanis? The same blood, the same ethnicity. And this is probably the last question which is asked in Azerbaijan. You know our country very well. And we are all Muslims, and there is no division between us. And those who want to divide the Muslim world, they do a big damage to all Muslims. Muslim world must be united. And what we are doing, we are contributing to that by our efforts, by our initiatives, by our statements, and our policy. Therefore, I think in today's world, the traditional alliances, they can grow bigger. And for instance, we already discussed the Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation format. One of the advantages of Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation format is that we create a synergy, and the countries which, for instance, Azerbaijan has better relations, or Turkey has better relations, Turkey has better relations. I'm not yet used to that. These countries also create additional potential. You know that Azerbaijan played a role in normalization of relations between Turkey and Israel. We also played a role in normalization of relations between Turkey and some Arab countries. We consider this as part of our duty, because if we have these connections, we want our friends to be friends between themselves. And this really creates additional opportunity to strengthen security, stability, and to have more economic benefits. And I think now what we see is a configuration of political cooperation formats in the broader region of Eurasia. Goes in positive direction. With respect to our reconstruction processes, of course, first of all, what we do for those people who will come to live there. And Zengilan Airport has importance because it will be easier to transport cargos, and one day probably Zengilan Airport will have international flight connections. Why not? It's one of the most beautiful parts of Azerbaijan, a very beautiful nature and natural springs and rivers and trees. It's piece of heaven. And we will create all the necessary infrastructure for that. At the same time, it is not far from Armenian border. Therefore, it is not a secret that this airport will also be important from point of view of security. And also taking into account the growing number of cargo going through Azerbaijan and the growing cargo fleet of Azerbaijan, I think it should be, it could be one of the destination for our cargo fleet. Because of the location, it is closer to Europe, it is closer to South, and Zengilan in general will be an important transportation center which sits on the Zengezur transportation corridor. The railroad to Zengilan already is built, probably you've seen it. And next year it will come to the, almost will come to Armenian border. Airport in Fizuli is now actively used, and many visitors, international visitors also use it. And airport in Lachin has, of course, special importance because it's not easy access to Lachin. You can get it either through, either through Kelbecer Mountains, which is sometimes inaccessible in summer, or through Gubadli, so it really has importance mainly for those people who will live there. Whether this will have impact on a future additional, benefits for the region, of course, yes, of course. Because when we started to invest in Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railroad, also there were questions why we spend so much money, almost $800 million if we have other connections. But now we see the situation has changed. There is a need to expand it up to 5 million tons, and we are already doing it. By the end of next year, it must be ready. The same will be with Karabakh, because it will be a driving force for development of Azerbaijan. It will accumulate a lot of labor resources, and that will help us to keep unemployment at a low level. And of course, Zengilan Agali village is an illustration of the will of Azerbaijani people. Many thought that no one will come back. But you see 70 children at school, and the young generation representatives who were raised in Baku or Sumgait, they moved. They moved from capital, city, to a village to live on their own land. And this shows that the will of Azerbaijani people cannot be damaged by neither occupation nor any other, threats. And I'm sure absolute majority of former refugees will go back. And the process has started.
Mr. President, you're already spending 2 intense hours with us, and we still have 4 more questions.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Venslav Sabev, Vice President, Geneva Geostrategic Observatory, Switzerland.